This is the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles.
Oh, yes, the draft, it has come, it has gone. We have a lot of thoughts on the draft and what happened this past weekend. It's the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles. Greg, there's a lot of negativity out there regarding this draft from the Patriots. I have heard all of the negativity. What are your overall thoughts on the draft and what we saw play out from Thursday through Saturday?
Well, Nick, I think my overall sort of feeling coming out of this draft is a little bit of confusion. Look, we talked about this draft ad nauseum for a while, and basically, I thought that the Patriots would take offensive line in round one. I figured an offensive tackle. Didn't happen. They went with Cole Strange. I figured a wide receiver in round two. I figured there'd still be some high-end guys available there, depending on how the quarterbacks went in the first round. And only one quarterback went above the Patriots. So, that wasn't, great for them. And I thought they would go cornerback in round three. So what they did was similar to what I thought. So I feel, good about that. It's just, the value that I thought they got. And look, people will make an argument. You might even make this, Nick, where it's like, all right, well, whose value are we talking about? And it's a legitimate argument. It's sort of, one of those things that makes the draft go round. But when a couple of things that I want people to understand, when they talk about these draft evaluators, like whether it's Mel Kiper or Daniel Jeremiah or, whoever, even those of us beat writers who have sources around the league, what people have to understand is most of the time, these guys, like say with a Mel Kiper might lean a little bit more towards his own analysis, but most of these guys, and it's grown in years because I think that the NFL teams themselves have come to respect some of these draft analysts. And what you hear about their projected on where they're projected to go, it's not just Mel Kiper's opinion on where this guy should go. Some of it is. It's the same with me. Some of it is my own opinion, but a lot of it is these guys get on the phone and they talk to NFL sources before the draft because they don't know. They talk to scouts, they talk to front office people, and they go over a whole list of names, like Bob McGinn, who I worked with at the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, who is now doing his draft his draft series at Go Long, Ty Dunn's online outfit. Bob McGinn just gets on the phone for about 2 straight months and he probably talks to 25, 26 different teams and literally has a list at each position and asks these guys, these scouts, these front office people, it's not the consensus, but he asks them, what do you think about this guy? Where do you think he's going to go? Because these guys at the end of the day, they want to look good on their mock draft and they really want to look good on their top 100, like where the top 100 guys in the draft. So when you hear that the Patriots didn't get value, or I don't agree with the value that the Patriots got on picks, it's not because I'm believing Mel Kiper. It's because I'm believing guys who I've observed over the years who have good sources around the league. That being said, I thought Cole Strange, and we can argue about this, Nick. I think Cole Strange is going to be a fine player. And we'll go over each of the players pick by pick. But I thought trading down from 21, and we'll talk about the trade as well. 21, we know the trade that they accepted. Do you stick and pick? Or do you, when you know that probably there's 20-ish maybe first-round talents in this draft, or do you trade down, get an extra couple picks, what have you? But the big thing is, I just don't agree in this day and age and where this team is on taking a guard in the first round. I just don't. Yeah. I don't care if he's going to the Hall of Fame. I don't. I mean, look, the Patriots, when they broke through after a decade drought in the Super Bowl, their interior offensive line was Dan Conley, undrafted, Brian Stork, first-round rookie, Ryan Wendell, undrafted. When they won in 2016 and 2018, Joe Tooney, third-round pick, immediate starter. David Andrews, undrafted, immediate starter. Shaq Mason, fourth-round pick, immediate starter. You don't need a first-round guard, especially maybe tackle I could see. But where this team is right now, I thought they should have gone with another position. I just didn't see the value there, and I thought Tyquan Thornton, who we'll also talk about, I thought he was a bit of a reach in round 2.
All right, so look, I don't necessarily disagree with everything up until Tyquan Thornton that you just said. I want to make this very, very clear. If I were to give this draft a grade, I'd probably hover around a C. I didn't love the draft by any means, but I'm going to attack this differently today. I'm going to give you some optimism and some silver linings. I'm going to give you some stuff that people really haven't talked about, because I've heard about the reaching. I've heard about Cole Strange, and I've heard about the offensive guard. And again, I don't necessarily disagree. I don't like drafting a guard in the first round. I said my least desirable scenario would be what happened, was drafting a guard in the first round. But here are some overall thoughts before we go pick by pick. First of all, if you have hated Bill Belichick drafts recently, then you should like this one. And what I mean by that is Belichick has been criticized for years, sticking with the same programs, sticking with the same prototypical measurement guys. Oh, he's a Patriot guy, right? Phil Perry, who does a great job, does the prototypical Patriots. And the Patriots have been dragged for approaching the draft the same way every year. This was different. This was outside the box. I don't know if it's going to work, but if you've hated the same old, there was a lot of different with this draft as far as approach and philosophy. Secondly, I would say that, because it was such a different draft, and we'll get into Matt Groh later, so I don't want you to dig deep into this at all yet, Greg, but we talked about Groh leading into this. Because it was such a different draft, does that mean that Belichick actually gave Groh a legitimate seat at the table? We'll get to that. It's just one thought, that maybe this draft was so different that has a lot to do with it. There was a new guy leading, right? I would also say that we went into this draft saying you want speed, you want athleticism. If you wanted those two things, the players, we'll see if they can actually play. We'll see if they're good. But if you went into this draft wanting speed and athleticism, you got speed and you got athleticism. You got the running back and wide receiver, number one at the combine when it comes to 40-yard dash. Marcus Jones is a terrific athlete. If you want to talk about offensive line athleticism, Cole Strange also is one of the top athletes. I don't go that far. But, speed and athleticism, the Patriots addressed it in this draft, whether you like the players or not. They addressed, the needs that we talked about. Everybody's been begging for evolution from the Patriots. When is Belichick going to change? When is he going to realize that, everything he's done is just so off the board now? If you're begging for evolution, it's happening. You got more speed, as I just mentioned. There's going to be reportedly, because of Jakob Johnson, no more traditional fullback in this offense, which means they might be running their offense slightly differently. They're looking for versatile defensive backs. They have brought in smaller linebackers and guys who could play that hybrid role at the second level. This draft, again, is much different. So if you've been begging for different, if you've been begging for evolution, you got it with this draft. And finally, people are questioning, the 2 Jones picks at cornerback. Listen, you're addressing, I think, some matchup problems that you have with Buffalo and Miami with these Jack Jones and Marcus Jones picks. So, again, just different points. I didn't love the draft. Don't get it twisted. I'm not telling you it was a fantastic draft. But if you want to take some silver linings, I think we saw this team go outside the box. We saw this team try to address needs that we've talked about overall with this football team. And we've wondered if they're going to actually evolve their philosophy and thought process. And I thought you saw some of that this weekend.
Yep, I don't disagree with this, and I like that you're bringing some sunshine because I'm probably a little cloudy today. So, we'll be a little yin and yang here. But let's start.
It's been everybody's been cloudy. So again, I agree with a lot of what people have said, but I feel like Patriots fans, if you've been listening to podcasts or listening to the radio or reading stuff online from all of these national pundits, you've been hammered over the head with the same stuff over and over and over again. So I'm just trying to bring a little bit of a different twist to it and play some devil's advocate today. So Patriots fans might get the other side and actually that it's possible that not every single pick sucked and this draft was a dumpster fire.
Absolutely. And I think any discussion on this draft, you got to start with the trade down. So, let's talk about that for a second. So they're at 21 overall. We know that they had an offer for a third and a fourth round pick, 94 and 121. I was just trying to figure out what those picks. I think one of them turned into 121 was Jack Jones, the cornerback, and then the other trade down. I'm trying to figure it out. Oh, so they got a 2023 third round pick, and 137 would be
Zappe.
Bailey Zappe. Okay. So on the clock, you're on the clock with the Patriots, and I went over this. And if anybody's curious, I did an alternate universe what I would have done on the clock if I was the Patriots with what was on the board. Okay, and including do I trade down or not? Because I think that's the key first decision on the board. Cornerback Trent Duffy, who the Chiefs traded up and picked in your spot. Quay Walker, cornerback Kaiir Elam, offensive tackler Tyler Smith, edge Jermaine Johnson, linebacker Devin Lloyd. Tough decision. I mean, I think, going into the draft, we talked about McDuffie, Walker, Elam. Johnson we thought would be gone by now, but let's take him out of the equation because I don't think he's quite a scheme fit for the Patriots. He's more of a run-up-the-field type of edge guy. And, of course, Devin Lloyd, who we talked about a lot over the course of the draft season. And you're going down 29. You're going down eight spots. So, the chances are none of those guys are going to be on the board if you come up and pick again at 29. Chances are they're all going to be gone. At the end of the day, I chose to pick and stick. I wanted Devin Lloyd, Nick. I did, but I thought the Patriots painted themselves, probably from their own doing, into a corner at linebacker by re-signing Juwan Bentley to a contract extension. I looked at his contract. Can I get out of it? No, it's not overly expensive. But, if I draft Devin Lloyd and I traded for Mack Wilson, I have Cameron Groh coming back, and I have Raekwon McMillan coming back. We told people the Patriots are okay with what they have at linebacker. Like, it's not a need. I don't think they view it as a need. I think they think they're stocked there. And if they didn't re-sign Juwan Bentley, I'm running up to and turning in the card for Devin Lloyd. And I don't feel bad about it at all. I feel great. But outside of that, I want a real deal cornerback with first-round experience. It's between McDuffie and Elam. McDuffie's a little small for me. I'm not sure he could play on the outside all the time. To me, Elam has more upside. I stood pat, and I took Kaiir Elam. The Patriots traded down.
Yeah. Look, if you look at this trade, just from a value standpoint, if you look at all the draft charts, right? If you look at this trade, then it made a lot of sense from a value standpoint. You could argue that the Patriots actually hoodwinked Kansas City a little bit here. And I saw a lot of tweets about that. If you look at the value chart and all that good stuff.
I thought it was pretty even. I mean, maybe I missed something, but I thought it was pretty. I mean, probably at the end of the day, once you factor in the future third, maybe they came away with it. But as far as the trade itself, it looked pretty even on the draft value chart.
I thought I saw something from Warren Sharp or somebody like that saying that the Patriots got like 30 points or something.
That a nerd report, yeah.
They got like a 30 or something, and the Chiefs got like an 18 or a 19. I don't know. But, yeah, look, I agree with you with Lloyd. I think one of the things that we learned about this team and how Belichick looks at this team, I would have loved Devin Lloyd, but I think you nailed it, Greg. I think when we look at the big picture at this team, we might go into this draft saying edge, linebacker. I think Belichick, again, this kind of goes in line with what I started with on this pod today. Belichick, everybody has been screaming, including you and I, give the young guys a chance. Give the young guys play the young guys. Well, look, if you've been screaming that for the last 2 years, then you can't complain about them not drafting a linebacker or an edge, because what they're doing is they're saying, we're betting on Mack Wilson. We're betting on Cameron Groh. Matt Groh took 2.2 seconds, if that, to bring up McGrone when he was asked about drafting a linebacker. He said, look, McGrone is we're looking at him as this year's draft pick. And
I agree with that.
It's a reasonable way to look at it. Is it going to work out? I don't know. But that they look at linebacker, they look at edge, and they say, hey, look, we've got Jennings, we've got Uche, we've got Perkins. We've invested in that position. It's either shit or get off the pot, excuse my language, with those guys. And so if you've wanted them to play the young guys, if you want to see what their prior drafts can actually produce, You're going to see that. Whether it's good or not, that's the deal. As far as the pick, I would have stayed there. I would have went with a cornerback, whether it was Elam or McDuffie, whoever they liked the most. I just value that position a heck of a lot more than I value offensive guard, as we talked about earlier. So I would have, gone the whole stick and pick route. But again, I think we learned looking at this team, Belichick is putting his trust in the moves that have been made in the last year or two. And that's what's happening. And it's all. And I
agree with that, Nick. I agree with you. And I think that, and I am in favor of it. I mean, we could argue about like, all right, well, if they didn't do it in the past and all of a sudden, now it's right. I mean, I want them to do it like 3 years ago. But anyways, the edge, totally agree with you. Linebacker, completely agree with you. Like, I like Mac Wilson. I think he's a starter. If they unlock him, I did a story on that. I studied his film. Cameron Groh, I think, is a good athlete. If you wanted an undersized, speedy linebacker, Cameron Groh is that guy. And I'm fine with that. But the Juwan Bentley thing, they just should have let it play out longer. Hey, maybe was anybody going to rush to sign Juwan Bentley? I mean, maybe the Raiders. I don't know. But I let it play out, and I already know I have guys, and I can sign Jamie Collins back if it doesn't work. If Juwan Bentley signs elsewhere and I don't get a linebacker in the draft, then I sign Jamie Collins back or Dante Hightower or I don't know, something like that. But Devin Lloyd, you plug Devin Lloyd into this front seven with what they have and Mac Wilson and what have you. I'm kind of excited about that. But
I agree. They could have waited on Bentley. At least I think they could have. And if you don't bring Bentley back, you can go find somebody that can replicate most of what Bentley does. I agree with you wholeheartedly with that. But we'll see. Maybe McGrone is the guy, and Raekwon McMillan is somebody who showed some flashes before he got hurt last year.
Yep.
So we'll see if those prior moves make sense. All right, let's go pick by pick here.
Yep.
Before I start with Cole Strange, I will say this, because as you mentioned, I agree with everything you said about Kuiper and McShay and, Daniel Jeremiah. He was a scout in the league for a while. He knows a lot of people. Bucky Brooks played in the league, so these guys do know personnel people in the league, and they talk to them. I will say this, though. It only takes one. And what I mean by that is when we talk about free agency, it only takes one team to drive the market on a player. It only takes one or two teams that might be in love with Tyquan Thornton or Cole Strange to kind of rattle the Patriots' cages. And if you thought Cole Strange might go in the early to mid-30s because you think you had some good intel, then that's why the Patriots would pick him. Again, don't like picking a guard in the first round. I'm just talking about value and all the points that have been brought up about reaching. It only takes one or two teams to like Strange or like Thornton. And then if you miss out on the guy that you love, you throw your hands up. So let's start with Cole Strange, 29th overall in the first round. We both don't like drafting a guard in the first round, but your thoughts on the player, Greg?
In favor of the player, I think he'll be an immediate starter. Will probably play a long time in this league. Watching him, I think he's going to be a better center where, he was mostly a guard in college. At the Senior Bowl, he basically played all center. I think, I don't really want to say this, but I'll just say I think he has a chance to be a phenomenal all-time center. Like once Andrews is done, we don't know how long Andrews is lasting. He has the quickness, the stoutness, the ability to get to the second level, like elite traits. He reminds me, when I watched him on film, he reminds me of Alex Mack, who has been a long time great center in this league. I think he's a really good player. I would not have taken a guard / center in the first round. We've talked about the reasons why. I just don't see the value in that. In today's NFL, 10 years ago, yeah, maybe with a team that was, on the precipice of winning a Super Bowl and really needed a good interior offensive lineman. Okay, maybe not with this team, not where they are right now.
It is interesting. Interior offensive lineman went earlier than I thought in the first round across the board. Like Kenyon Green went 15th, I think, to Houston, and Johnson went early. Yeah, so some of those guys they went earlier than I thought. So Strange kind of went along with that, which makes you wonder if there were a handful of teams who were hot on guards. And again, it made some of those teams draft guys a little bit earlier than they really wanted to, and maybe they knew, hey, look, there's really 4 or 5 top-notch guards in this draft. So if I want one, I'll take one. Again, I don't agree with drafting in the first round of guard. but that's what you've got. I will add this. Mike Giardi had a note this week, and he said he reported that from what he heard, it was definite as far as Cole Strange getting drafted in the second round. That from what he heard, there's no doubt there was a team that would absolutely 100% draft Strange. Now, again, where was that team in the second round? We don't know. Was that team willing to move up? We don't know. But it only takes one, as I mentioned. And if one team was super hot on Strange and they were willing to move up in the 35, 36 range, then you kind of get an idea of why maybe the Patriots would have pulled the trigger at 29, even though I disagree with it. One more thing I would say is Matt Groh. I think it's interesting you bring up the center spot, because one thing Matt Groh mentioned in his post-draft press conference was people are pigeonholing this guy as a guard. I found that fascinating. Do they think he can be more versatile? Do they think he can play center? Do they think he might be able to take some snaps at tackle if they develop him and work him up?
In a pinch, yeah. I mean, I asked about that because the natural thing is, all right, they took this guy in the first round. Maybe they think he can play tackle. I asked a lot of people about that. I also asked people, I can't find anybody that has Cole Strange that would have actually been drafted at the top of the second round. So certainly teams were high on Cole Strange, but to actually go and draft that player is to me a different thing. I think he's a guard center. I do think he can give you snaps at left tackle, but I asked a lot of people and nobody thinks that he's a long-term tackle. I'm just relaying the information. Yeah.
Good intel, because if you looked at him as a tackle or a possible tackle, that changes the value at 29.
Yep. No question.
Tyquan Thornton goes at number 50, second round. Of course, the Patriots moved up to draft Thornton at 50 in the second round. Your thoughts on the player?
Okay, so I watched a lot of film on Tyquan. I'm about to write up a story for BSJ. I can see why they valued him higher than most people. I was surprised. I watched him on film. What you hear about him is just a straight line guy, small hands, small wrists, goes down at contact, blah, blah, blah.
Can I just stop you for a second? 10-second take on the wrists. What are we really breaking down the size of a dude's wrists at this point?
Yeah. I mean, they think that's an indicator of he doesn't have strong hands, that he's not going to hold on to the ball.
Okay.
Now, the film shows you don't see any of that stuff on film. You see he makes, he makes contested catches. Saw him make a ridiculous fade catch. He does back shoulder. He goes over the middle and plucks the ball out of the air. He's not afraid of contact. You do see him break a tackle on occasion. So I could see he's the biggest swing pick, in my opinion, in this draft. Yep. He has the read of being, once he gets to the pro level and he's going up against press man corners. Again, the whole formula is he too fast to go press man? Because if he slips it, then you get beat. He's the big swing. I think he has bust. If you're going to say if one guy's going to bust, it's him. I don't think that's the case. I actually think he has a better chance than most of the guys with his profile. I think he has a good chance. I just would have taken Travis Jones, the nose tackle for UConn. I just wanted to throw that in.
Yeah, our guy Evan Lazar, he has done some film too, and one of the things that jumps out at me, and he's brought this up, so it's not an original idea. Props to Evan, but the releases at the line of scrimmage, and the kind of the quick feet kind of release at the line of scrimmage to get into the beginnings of your route. You see that with Thornton, and that's something that you don't see from really many, if any, of these Patriots receivers. I will also bring up Giardi. Look at me, just giving a bunch of shout outs to people today. Giardi, as part of his Cole Strange report, also said that, as far as Thornton, someone was lurking, and he's really confident that someone was, lurking and in love with Thornton. And one of the teams,
Giardi's just gone full honk. Who are his sources? Patriots sources? I
don't know, but he brought up maybe Pittsburgh as that team lurking, that or maybe they liked some of the stuff they saw on film. So I agree with you though. Thornton is the swing pick. If Thornton works out, if they hit a home run with Thornton, I don't think many people are crying about this draft 3 years.
100%. If he's what they drafted him to be, this draft is great.
All right, let's run through quickly the rest of the draft here. Marcus Jones at 85, Greg.
Love him. Baller, ball player. I would have picked this guy in the same spot. He's your future slot guy, kick returner, can give you probably a few snaps on offense too. I worry about his shoulders. He had shoulder surgery on both of them already. That's an issue for an interior sort of guy and a willing tackler, but love him. Absolutely love him. Love the pick.
Arizona State cornerback Jack Jones with 121. This was another pick where people were screaming, "Oh my God, what a reach by Belichick." Your thoughts on Jack Jones?
Yeah, I would have, he's a bit of a reach. You hear that he has man-covered traits. And look, if the Patriots, again, this is another swing pick. It's a risky pick. It's a swing pick. If they got their man corner later than I wanted to, I wanted Elam in the first round. They got theirs later, picked up more picks. They got their inside cornerback and Marcus Jones of the future. Then great. I do think there's questions about Jones, and he had a lot of off-field issues earlier. We'll see if those are still the case. Obviously, the Patriots, Matt Groh said they did a lot of homework, so I'm good with that. I took Khalil Shaker, wide receiver, Boise State, in my draft in this spot.
The Patriots met with Jones, top 30 visit. They went out to Arizona to talk to the Arizona State people about Jones. So yeah, they did a lot of homework on him. He was a 5-star recruit, I believe, coming out of high school. He was really, really good in his freshman year. And then the off-the-field stuff bit him. Now, we know that there's been some, past examples of this. Malcolm Butler, J.C. Jackson, some things going on where guys were very talented, but it didn't work out for one reason or another. I'm not telling you that Jack Jones is going to be Butler or J.C. Jackson, but the Patriots have a history of this, and they feel comfortable with the homework they've done. They were right on Butler. They were right on Jackson. We'll see if they're right on Jack Jones. Pierre Strong at 127, running back, home run hitter, Greg.
Like him. Love the pick. Good player. Can give you a bunch of things. James White with speed. So I like the pick there. Yeah,
and let's not forget that White over the weekend said he's got a ways to go. He might not be back.
He might not.
I hope he comes back, but it's a hip, significant injury to the hip and surgery to the hip. So yeah, I'm not banking on James White. I love him. Hopefully he comes back and he looks like James White, but I'm not banking on it. 137. Here's another pick that kind of rattled the cages because I think people were fine with Pierre Strong. Again, shifty, different kind of running back they have. Harris coming up on his contract. Bailey Zappe at 137, the quarterback. Your thoughts?
Like the pick. Wanted them to take a quarterback. Both their backup quarterbacks are in contract years. I asked our guy, Kevin Field, for a quarterback, plugging in all the stuff I wanted. He came out with Bailey Zappe. So he's the Patriots type of guy. I like the pick. I just don't like it doing in the 4th round. I don't know why Bill just continues to have an allergic reaction to picks in the 5th round. He hates picks in the 5th round. I understand that before. Now with COVID factoring in and deep draft classes now and wide receivers, I think it's just ill-sighted. I think it's him being stuck in his ways. I think you take Zappe in the 5th round, you take another pick here, then I feel different about it, but I like the player.
I've heard people say, if you're going to draft a backup quarterback in the 4th round, then go for a high trait, strong-armed guy.
What?
Look, everybody he should have an elite skill. Listen, the Patriots have done that a lot, and it hasn't worked. They've drafted a lot of quarterbacks in the mid to late rounds with
Ryan Mallett. Jesus.
Yeah, Ryan Mallett is the perfect example. Like, I have no problem drafting a guy who's pretty much Mac Jones light. He's like Mac Jones, QB2 guy. He's got the same, he doesn't have as strong of an arm as Mac, and Mac doesn't have an overly strong arm. But if you're going to bring somebody in as backup quarterback the next 10 years, find a guy who plays like Mac Jones. Find a guy who's smart. They did. I don't hate it at all. Kevin Harris at 183, running back.
Yeah, I just, I'm sure he's fine. I just didn't, these last picks, I'm going to just knock it out. I mean, Kevin Harris, I just don't like double dipping at running back. I didn't want to do that. I'd rather do something else. Sam Roberts, we'll see. You can always use, sort of interior pass rusher types. Chasen Hines, I like him at guard. I don't know why you need to go guard again after you just went guard in the 1st round. He reminds me of Owenu a bit, same round too, where they were drafted. Similar body type. Stueber, I can't find anybody who thinks he can play. I haven't watched him yet, but everybody doesn't think he's any good. But we'll see.
When you get to like the 6th round, lotto ticket.
Exactly.
Kevin Harris, lotto ticket, was really good in the SEC before he got the back injury. I saw Lance Zierlein say that if Harris was healthy in this draft, he would have been one of the top 6 to 8 running backs in the draft. So you take a lotto ticket on him. Sam Roberts, again, lotto ticket, great size. He's got some good measurements. Does it work? Who knows? Chasen Hines seems like he's the belle of the ball, so to speak, with these late picks. He had some injuries, but he's big. He's athletic. I agree with you. You know, you kind of see Shaq Mason in his game.
Pulls like a son of a bitch. Yeah.
And if you end up moving Strange to center, or, you know, you have some versatility now and you have some pieces. You could move Onwenu to tackle eventually down the road. You could move Strange to center. You could have, you know, maybe Hines, if he works out, can move in. And Stueber, again, he's a gigantic human being. Some people had him as a 5th round guy. So if you want to talk value late, they picked the guy that was 5th round projected in the 7th round. And he could develop into that kind of swing tackle. That's like the top potential for him. So again, another lottery ticket. Greg, what was the reaction around the league to this draft?
They were confused, as we were. They just don't understand the value. And I've asked around, and people have come to me and texted me like, "What's going on in New England? Like, what's going on?" They think that. Well, first of all, one thing I wanted to bring up, and we'll sort of wrap here, and we'll leave the member question off for this week, and because this has sort of been the member question, anyways. What happened with the draft? When we questioned Bill Belichick going with Matt Groh as director of player personnel over an experienced guy like Elliott Wolf or bringing in another guy, this was one of our fears, that when you're as, green as Groh is, and compared to like Ziegler and Caserio and those guys who have been around, Ziegler had been other places. Ziegler, I will tell you, one of his strengths is he knows everybody in the league. And a lot of these guys, what they do is they get on the phone at some point, or they see guys out scouting, and, sort of they have the ability, because some people are like, oh, I might work for that guy someday. They say, Ziegler can go to them and say, hey, what's your range on this guy? How high are you guys on this guy on your board? And he'll get answers. The Patriots draft, to me, reeked of them them having a big blind spot to what the information was from the rest of the league, that they didn't know how teams valued Cole Strange and Tyquan Thornton and things like that. Is that fact? I don't know. Nobody knows. The Patriots aren't going to tell us, but that's the way it read to me. That's what I heard from people around the league, that they said, this is Groh not having sources around the league and not knowing what the board is, because they could have got, they drafted some good players, but they could have gotten them a lot later and done a lot different things. And I thought that Ziegler did a good job of that last year, like them trading up and getting Christian Barmore. We'll see if Thornton's the Barmore of this draft. Maybe he is. I don't know. And the other thing I wanted to bring up that I was thinking about right before this, Nick, was I find it interesting that they went with Cole Strange in the 1st round, because who do we think is the offensive line coach this year for the Patriots?
Yeah, Matt Patricia. And who's Bill's little buddy now? Matt Patricia. So do you think is it possible that Matt Patricia stood on a table and said, Bill, I'm the offensive line coach. I want a guy. I want this guy. And Bill said, okay, and went along with Matt Patricia. It's just one thought that I had. I don't know what the case is, but the overwhelming reaction around the league was the Patriots underwhelmed in this draft, and they are puzzled by what New England did. I give it a solid C, somewhere around there. Again, I gave you some of the silver linings to this draft, and I'll say it one more time. If Cole Strange works out eventually, if he is like that good, then people will care a lot less about where he was drafted, because inevitably you're going to have guys who are drafted in the top 50 that don't work out, that stink, that flame out. So if you hit with Tyquan Thornton and you're looking at, Strange, Thornton, and I think Marcus Jones, as long as he's healthy, will be fine, then, 3 years from now, this draft might be looked at differently. But anyway, there's a lot of stuff out there about this draft. It was obviously unique. It was interesting, and it gave us a lot to talk about. And we'll talk about it more as we move forward in this offseason. Yep. He's Greg. I'm Nick. It's the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast. Everybody have a fantastic weekend. Be good, be safe, be healthy. Till next time, we'll talk to you.